Welcome to So Guided, a spiritual travel guide for the curious. Join Carissa and Jenny, ordinary people exploring all the extraordinary ways we can connect to the universe. Each week, they investigate another spiritual modality and adventure through all the wild ways we can find high vibes, hope, and ultimately, enlightenment.
Hello and welcome to another episode of So Guided. Today we are diving into the moon. Jenny and I got a book that really opened the door to all the magic that the moon has to offer. It's always been something that's beautiful in the sky, but as we started doing some research and getting into it, we realized that the moon impacts us in so many ways, and we thought it was super cool, and there's so much information out there on it. So we wanted to share some of our findings and some of the ways that the moon speaks to us. So you've got questions, so do we. Let's do this.
Well, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Happy new moon.
Happy new moon. Talking about one of our favorite subjects, moons, on an actual new moon.
I know. And this was coincidence, not planned.
Coincidence. Luck. Good luck. I love it.
Absolute
love
luck.
So you want to start with your woo-woo of the week?
I do. So reading all the spiritual books as we do. Mm-hmm. The one we're on is about good vibes right now. And one of the tasks at the end of every chapter, it prompts you to do something. And this one was to bring a notebook around with you and write down weirdo vibes that you get, like an inclination. Don't go down the street, or buy the purple eyeshadow, or just weird random anythings that you're getting as an intuitive hit. So it's basically saying, like, even if it sounds weird, write it down. And then you're supposed to go revisit it later and see how many of them came true. And the more you do it, the more you're going to tune in to your natural inclination to intuitive.
Okay, love it.
Love it. You're going to get to that chapter. You're
not there yet, but I'm excited.
But it's fun. So I started to do it. And I'm not wonderful about writing things down, as you know, but I did start to do it. And I have a notebook in the car and one at home. Then I'm going to start doing this more and more. But it started to happen around me. And one of my favorite ones, which was just so dumb and little, but it just happened right away to show me it works. I was in Pilates. There was a girl that had never been there before who needed help, couldn't figure out the machine. And I was just being nice, helping her. And while I was in her energy, and by the way, side note was I was already going to go grocery shopping after Pilates. That was in my plan. And while I was putting the equipment together for her, I was like, oh, she's going to Trader Joe's after this too. And it was just in my head. So when I got in, and she didn't tell me she was, and Trader Joe's wasn't even in the same town. So it's not like it was in a different, completely different town. So I got in the car, and my little new notebook, I wrote, she's going to Trader Joe's. I drive to Trader Joe's, go through the whole grocery store. She's not there. I'm like, ugh, another dumb thing. I'm stupid for trying. And I go to check out, and she's in the line behind me.
Amazing. Dude, that is that's amazing.
It's just silly.
It's silly, but it's like, oh my God, what a hit. Oh my God, that's amazing. Congratulations. That's a huge win. My God.
Evidence.
Evidence. Freaking verifying the insanity. I love it. So I have a woo-woo, and I was actually having a hard time thinking of one. But we're also doing, because we're trying to do it all, we're the curious explorers that we are, we're also doing a manifestation challenge. And I've been always manifesting big things. But one of the things I've realized about manifestation is sometimes it's just like the little things too. Yes. The other day, I was upstairs in my kid's bathroom. It was late. And there's one of those rugs. What are the rugs called?
Turkish rugs.
Turkish rugs. And Jenny knows because she's, she made me get it. But so there's a Turkish rug upstairs in their bathroom, and I stepped on it, and there was, I didn't know in my kid's bathroom, I stepped on it, and I was like, oh my God, this hurts so bad. I looked out, and there was those crazy staples in it, which I didn't realize. This has been in my kids' bathrooms for almost a year now, and they haven't stepped on it, thank God. But I looked, and the tag was still on the back, which I didn't realize. And there was these insane staples, like the very intense, you can't pull them out with your hand, almost, I don't know, very intense staples, beyond staples that they'd use. So anyway, I'm in my kid's bathroom, and in their vanity, there's a toothbrush. They have drawers, and there's nothing in there. It's a fairly remodeled bathroom, so that hasn't been stocked. It doesn't have a ton of stuff. But for some reason, I was like, I need to take these staples out. I can't do it with my fingernails. I need a tool. And I'm like, I bet there's a tool in here. And I open up the kids' drawer and there's literally, like I said, a toothbrush and a flat plastic thing just randomly sitting there with I could stick under the staples. And I was like, it was the only other thing in there. And I'm like, it was something that Fiona like sometimes uses to put like eyeshadow on. I don't even know. Honestly, I don't even know what it was, but it was there and I just knew it was going to be there. I'm like, there's going to be a tool for that. And I even told like my husband after, I was like, oh my God, I'm like, I totally just manifested this random tool after like, so the kids wouldn't get hurt. And then kind of like piling on to that, the other day, we're in my bathroom, a different bathroom, and Nick wanted to like label his contacts, and he's like, "Oh, do you have a marker?" And we're in the bathroom. Why would I have upstairs in my like master bathroom? He's like, "Do you have a marker?" And I just said, "I'm like, yep." And I didn't know we did, but for some reason I knew there'd be like a random Sharpie if I opened my jaw, and I did again for no rhyme or reason. And so I was just, and it was one of those things like when you know, like I felt like I just like created the stuff to be there. I totally manifested these things. And I'm like, I know it's the little things, but sometimes like when things just like work out so perfectly, it's because you're in the flow. Totally. And it's like, of course there's something so random that would work perfectly. And of course there's a Sharpie. So so those are like my two things. And when they hit, I knew it.
I love
it. Kind of like when you do like, wow, it's so cool. Like I knew I did it. So anyway, as we're talking about like my mini manifestations that I had, it's a perfect time to jump into moons and something that we absolutely have fallen in love with and more recently really dove into like what it is and what the moon and the cycles mean. So we're going to share a little bit about what we've learned today and see if it's something that you all will like as well and get us into, because I think we all grow up looking at the moon, right? Love the moon, especially the full moon. It's something that I feel like everybody or most people are in awe of in one way or another, but I feel like there's so much more to it. So I'm going to share a little about that today. So one of the things that in our spirituality that has come to like kind of come up a few times has been the moon. And when I really started thinking about it differently than just like a huge, beautiful object in the sky was when I had read or seen or heard that 60% of our body is actually made up of water. Mm-hmm. And if you think about the moon, one thing we all know the moon does is impact the tides in the ocean. We live in an ocean town and you can see the high tide and the low tide, and that's all impacted by the gravitational pull of the moon, obviously. So why wouldn't the moon impact us if we're 60% water? Right. So that's one of those things. And you know me, I'm a little scientific at certain things and want all the proof. And so I'm like, that just made sense and it's always resonated with me. Like, why wouldn't that be? Why wouldn't the moon impact us? If it can impact the oceans, totally. Why wouldn't it impact us?
We're made of the same stuff at almost the exact percentage.
Right. And so again, as you look at some of the other cool things around the moon, Jenny hates this subject. Even like when you get your periods, 28 days, it's like based on the moon cycle. That's like true. There's so many tie-ins of how the moon impacts just our life, the seasons of growth and all of these things that happen. Like the moon is tied to, I think, all of it. And again, we're learning more about how this works, but it's something where we bought a book, we bought a moonology book, and we've done a little bit of research, and it's definitely new to us, the different phases, but the different phases, I feel like I'm the only one talking here. The different phases are like what totally impact us, right, as an individual. Right. So we mentioned before, like today is a new moon. Until about 6 months ago, I didn't even know what a new moon was.
In fact, so while we started our spiritual looking into things, I don't know what else to call it. I don't know if I'm enlightened yet, so I can't call it enlightenment.
Journey.
Our journey to figuring out more. We always loved the moon. So our instincts were, before we knew anything else, was to do things. We intuitively had ideas of how to go along with the full moon, and we hadn't really like searched it out more. An example of that is you and I both burned things and threw them in fire. I would make wishes because I thought that was when you make wishes. Yep. There was a lot that we looked into. So once we got into this book, we actually have a weird thing that kind of flipped the script on us. Yeah. It turns out the new moon is amazing. Right. And the new moon is when the sky shows no moon at all. Right. So you ordinarily look and think darkness, and it actually means something really awesome. So we learned that new moon is actually the clean slate. It's when you plant the seed or plant the wish, plant your idea to grow during that lunar cycle. And then the full moon is when you forgive people, when you let go, and that's when you release. So new moon is bringing in things, and then the full moon is releasing, not unlike the tide. So in you go, out you go. There's the ebb and flow to go along with the water theme you just talked about.
Right. And so the new moon is actually the best time to manifest.
That's right.
And so it's like you're planting the seeds, you're making your wishes, you're putting out into the universe what you want,
right.
like what you're looking for,
right.
what best serves you.
Totally.
You're concentrating on that. You're living in the energy
yes.
of that want or of that like manifestation. Right. And the new moon is actually able to help that come to fruition easier. Like that's the magic of the new moon.
Right. And it's working with you.
Yeah. And it's like one of the ways, like I think you described it, which I love, is like you're planting the seed. So it's dark. You're planting the seeds like in the dark, like almost like underground, like in a way. That new moon magic is like working to help that grow.
Right.
That grow from like the darkness into something. So I've been more and more like attracted to the new moon because of the magic that it is, just to like make the new moon wishes.
Yes.
And to like live in that energy of creating and building. And then as the cycles go, do you want to like quickly like touch on how we get to the full moon? Like, so there's different.
Yeah, let me tell the phases. So, first I'll say it's actually a complicated subject.
Very.
And scientific with astronomy.
Right.
And it could get wildly detailed. So today we're being light because we're not experts and we're new. And for anyone who's interested at a very light level, all you really need to know when you're entering the subject is wish on a new moon, release on a full moon. But just in case you're curious, and this is again the Moonology book, which we'll tell you more about, each phase has a specific purpose. The new moon phase is plant the seeds of your future dreams. This begins after, right about the new moon. And the key words of this phase is a clean slate, potential, and dreams.
Yes.
What we just talked about. The other thing in the weird part of kind of leaning into the woo-woo and believing in the stuff is if you let yourself be at peace or quiet, I've noticed there's an energy to a new moon in the air. So like I do meditate every morning. So I do find silence and quiet, and I'll notice that there's a palpable pregnancy to a new moon, like ready for something to give way. I feel it.
That's so interesting you say that because again, going back to the full moon, which I feel like everybody is aware of the full moon. And like, again, before 6 months ago, I didn't even think about the new moon. I only talk about the full moon, but the full moon, we all know has such an energy. There are more accidents that happen on a full moon. Everyone's like, when people are acting weird, it's a known slang to be like, oh, it must be a full moon.
Right.
If there's such energy to the full moon, of course.
Why wouldn't there?
There's
equal and opposite.
Right. Equal and opposite in the new moon. And so with that little hectic, crazy kind of chaos of a full moon, again, which makes sense because you're letting go, you're releasing, everything's getting flushed out in that full moon. When you're bringing in to have a stillness and a quiet on a new moon makes so much sense to me. It's like you said, the balance. It's a complete balance of when you said like a stillness versus a chaos of a full moon. Right. It makes so much sense.
I love that.
The dark and the light. And it's the dark and the light. Yeah, you do.
That's right. Everything's exposed under the full moon. And anything's possible in a new moon.
Yes, I love that.
That's really cool.
Good.
This is real-time epiphanies. This is
real epiphanies, people. We're learning with you.
Okay.
Learning as we go.
So as we go through the phases, when you look in the sky, you start to see a little bit of a crescent. And this is called the waxing crescent. Mm-hmm. This means explore your dreams. So this is you starting to lean into that wish you made, that manifestation you want to create. The keywords of this phase are courage, moving forward, and faith.
You're seriously believing in your manifestation, letting it continue to happen.
Totally.
Nice.
So this to me imagines like if you're stepping off the cliff, like this is the faithful step forward.
And that's like a little crescent.
Yes.
Like
and that's so cute. It's my necklace.
Oh, it's your necklace. Okay, good. You have a wax. Okay. Was it waxing or weaning?
This is waxing.
Okay.
So the building 2 is the waxing, right?
Okay.
All right. So then we're in the first quarter moon phase. It's time to commit. The keywords of this phase is challenges, confidences, and commitment. This is when you say, it's time. And this is when you implement action. So if there was something that you were wishing for, you don't just you're not inactive. This is maybe where you actually assert something. Let's say you're looking for a house. Maybe this is when you're like, I'm going to pour a glass of wine and look at Zillow.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the action step 2.
Right.
I think this is also the point when some challenges might be thrown your way and you're supposed to just keep moving forward and
Stay committed.
It'll stay committed.
Okay, I like it.
Okay.
Yep.
This word's funny. I don't know what it looks like in the sky, the gibbous moon phase. But
Is this a half moon?
we're getting closer. I think so. Not quite half moon. Yes, no, I think you're right.
Okay.
Stay
Can
on.
we just call it half moon? I don't want to call it gibbous.
No, it's not. I think it's more than a half moon.
Oh.
Yeah. The gibbous moon phase. It says stay on course, tweak, hone, adjust.
Okay.
So you had your wish and you maybe realized, so all right, let's just use the Zillow example and I'm manifesting a home. By doing it, you realize the neighborhood you thought you want might not be it. So I'm going to tweak it. I found an area I could afford. Now I know I want a certain thing within this neighborhood.
Oh, you know what I like about that too is like when you're manifesting and even the new moon, you're always, when you're putting out your wish, you're always supposed to say like this or something better.
Oh, I like that.
So like you're always
Yes.
like, oh, I want, say you're manifesting a new house, like I want this new house on the
Right.
water or something better that you may
Right.
not even be able to imagine.
Yes.
So this part of the moon, I feel like allows you to adjust
I
as
like
needed for anything that may even be better than you could possibly imagine coming to you.
Oh, I love that. Not necessarily related to moon, but related to manifesting. So I guess yes to the moon. I think that's one of the most powerful things to say is of the highest good, this or something better
Yep.
for the highest good. And that means, wow, you could wish this and you could get something that shoots
Right.
way higher.
Right. 'Cause you don't-
There's-
yeah, you don't
there
even-
could be an even cooler plan.
You don't even know the
So
abundance.
be flexible, like be flexible within your wish, right?
Mhm.
Okay, now I'm at the full moon phase. It's make or break time. Keywords, results. So you're starting to see something's coming through. Forgiveness, gratitude. Now, this is something we learned along the way that we were surprised at. That full moon is forgiving and
Yes.
for gratefulness. So for me, could you talk about this? Because like for me, I'm like, all right, everything we just said makes sense. And then I'm like, why am I forgiving? And why am I guess gratitude makes sense because you made your wish, you're going for it. Maybe it's manifesting. So gratitude makes some sense. Forgiveness, what are your thoughts on that?
I put forgiveness in the same like vein as letting go.
Okay.
And like surrender
Okay.
and release. And so forgiveness to me I think it is forgiveness. I think we harbor and hold on to a lot with other people, with
Right.
ourselves. And so in order to be in that vibration of manifesting and creating, we need to be in that higher vibration. And so we have to be able to forgive and let go. And it's just how we said, with the energy of the full moon, I feel like if you're forgiving and letting go, it's sucking up that negative and releasing
you have room
it.
for
So you have
something.
room for something else. And one of the things, and I know, again, this is kind of specific, but with the full moon, the woman that we read her moonology book, who's like the expert, has a saying or part of a ceremony that she uses that is very much around
Yes.
forgiveness. And because she said forgiveness really is the key to manifestation.
All right, read that
And
for
so
me.
this is what she says. And I actually love this. And again, I don't necessarily have rationale to what it means or why, but it does resonate with me.
Okay.
So I'm going to share
All
it.
right.
If you're on a full moon and you want to just do something once a month on the full moon, you could read or say something along this line. Under the glorious full moon, I forgive everything, everyone, every experience, every memory of the past or present that needs forgiveness. I forgive positively everyone. I also forgive myself for past mistakes. The universe is love, and I am forgiven and governed by love alone. Love is now adjusting my life. Realizing this, I abide in peace. I bring love and healing to all of my thoughts, beliefs, and relationships. I learn my lessons and move on. I call on my soul fragments to be cleansed by the full moon, and I call on them to rejoin me. I send love to myself and everyone I know, and everyone who knows me in all directions of time. Under this glorious full moon, I am healed. My life is healed, and so it is. So be it. So I think that's beautiful. And again, it doesn't necessarily answer the question like why we need to forgive, but it does resonate with me. There's a letting go in that ceremony or in that saying that kind of, I don't think I can articulate it, but it makes sense to me why you would need to forgive in
Right.
order to move on.
Right.
And if this full moon helps you to forgive in any capacity and helps you to let go and move on, I feel like it only sets you up to move
success.
forward on the back end for manifesting with the new moon.
I like that.
Does that make sense? I feel like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's making room, it's releasing, it's bringing goodness in. It's a lot of things. But it also makes sense why the full moon's so wild.
It is.
It's an intense feeling.
I feel like the full moon like is such like calls to so many people. Like I know my daughter and like every time it's a full moon, like we're like chasing the moon, looking for it. Even like going back to when I was younger, I used to, like my best friend used to do full moon ceremonies with her mom.
She did?
Yeah, I've done full moon.
What?
Yeah, I used to join her for full moon ceremonies, like where she would just create and speak and like be one with the full moon. And I feel like there's this pulling to it. And it kind of like, again, in my head, as it pulls people to look at it, to bring to it, to see it, to appreciate it, I feel like it can also pull out that like negative energy within you. Like I can like almost see that. Like, and so I feel this like letting go release is like the moon's magic pulling off that.
Taking it away.
Yeah. And I'm making hand motions right now, pushing it up. You guys can't see me, but I feel like, like I feel like that can kind of resonate with me with that.
Right.
So what's the next? So after the full moon.
Oh, yeah. So it's not done after the full moon. It goes back down. So the disseminating moon phase, its keyword is breathe. It's ah. The keywords of this phase is cycle. Of this cycle is relax, accept, regroup. So you've released.
Yep.
It's a sigh. It's a sigh. It's a peaceful moment.
And that's like a 3/4 moon. That's like when it's like, it's still, it's gotta be. Yeah. It goes from full to, it's gotta be. Okay.
Right. So it's going away.
Yeah.
That's after you've actively maybe had the energies towards it. This is when it's time to release.
Yep.
Like you've released, actually, it's the breath after releasing, right? The 3rd quarter moon phase is what do you know? Reevaluate, balance, trust. It says this moon phase can be awkward. It's the halfway point between the wonder of the full moon and the potential of the new moon. On some level, we know what didn't work for us in the past has dissolved. It's time to reorient ourselves.
Okay. It's like the half moon on the way to the, okay.
Right.
I'm into it.
Right. The balsamic moon phase is actually a phase that Yasmin, this author, loves for some reason. I like the name of it. Balsamic moon.
I do like that one.
And it just says, and release. Healing, soothing, surrender. So this is, I believe...
It must be the quarter, right? The quarter
No, this
moon?
is the final. The phase begins around 10 and a half days after the full moon and continues to the beginning of the new moon.
Okay.
So this is when it's
like getting
disappearing
smaller,
in the sky. And so this is the true release. This is the surrender. Let yourself heal, let yourself soothe, and let's move on.
Okay. And that's because you're getting ready to wish, manifest, create.
Because you're ready to get back to new moon.
Yes, you need to be cleansed. Okay.
So
I like that.
Yeah, totally cool. That's neat. So like we said, in our newbiness on moon, we found it to be too much to look at all the in-between moons.
Yes.
And we focused on truly the new and full moon. So do you want to talk about any things we've done personally ritual-wise? Have you done anything funny with new and full moon in our experiences?
Well, you and I can jump right into, we did our first full moon ceremony with a group.
Right.
So not surprisingly, because nothing's coincidence, we happened upon a full moon ceremony in our town, which I never thought was something that was available. And so Jenny and I got to like snuck away for a couple hours on the full moon for this kicking off this new year. And we basically sat in a circle, and there was all these crystals, and there was like a little baby fire. It was indoors, so it was like a little baby fire. And
baby fire.
We basically did a small, very quick meditation, and then a guided meditation, if you will, and then with some sound bowls and some like energy, and then wrote down things we wanted to release, and then burned it. We shared it with the group, which was a little weird for me and Jenny.
It was not weird. We were frightened.
Yeah, it was frightened.
But also, so it's so funny because we share every week, right?
Yes.
However, we're also insanely very, very private about what we show in a situation like that.
Right.
So to read what I'm letting, like it felt very intimate,
vulnerable,
and
yes, and it was definitely.
But it felt good.
It did feel good, and we did it. And we, of course, I think tweaked it a little bit based on what we shared with the group.
The audience?
Yeah, based on the audience. But it was cool because I think that it was nice to, in a weird way, be held accountable because we said it out loud and then we walked up and we burned it. And it did feel like there was a lot of people letting go of a lot of different things. And everyone started with gratitude. So what were they grateful for? What did they want to appreciate at that time? And then what did they want to let go? And one of the things that I did take away from that is how many things that people are grateful for that I'm also grateful for. So I felt like I was in a very gratitude state when I was releasing. And so I felt like it was working. It felt good. to do it in the group energy.
Interesting. So you're playing up the idea of releasing and gratitude at the same time. So there's like, we could release because we have this of what we're grateful for.
Yes.
Maybe that's it. So you feel this in your hands while you release the other.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
We thought it was really cool. It was lighter than we thought. We thought it would be more like, let's go on a spirit journey. And it was just, I guess that what I kind of took from it, and we'll see how tonight's is that it doesn't need to be this crazy thing. It could be really light. And just as an example, before we ever did this in a group setting, and I don't know if we'll ever do it again. We've been curious for the purpose of talking with you guys about it. However, on our own, there's little things you could do at home if your town doesn't have a full moon circle. Yeah. So I was going to say what our rituals have been just us in our homes because it's really fun to do. So on a really light note, what I've started to do from the moment I learned about new moon is I write my wishes down and they say, put it in your windowsill you fold it and put it in your windowsill. And then I take it the next extra step and I put a moonstone on the piece of paper.
Oh, I love it.
And I leave it there for the next few days under the new moon. I kind of release that to the world. And then
I like that.
The other action I've done pretty much since the day we started reading about this, and I think you have too, is in the full moon, I write down what I'm going to release, and then I burn it in the fireplace. It's been cold around here, so lots of fires, it's easy to do. And there's something insanely cathartic about it, that even if all of this was bogus, what we're talking about, there's a really beautiful cleansing feeling. It's like,
I totally agree.
Even if it's the placebo effect, I feel like this amazing release.
Yes.
It feels really good.
I agree with you. And honestly, again, I feel like regardless if it feels like it's working, it is. I love that. I would say another thing that I've been doing is we have like that app Insight Timer, which has a lot of free meditations.
Ooh, that's so fun.
For almost every new moon or every full moon, there's meditations that you can do. So I try to, again, match up to whatever it is and do a meditation. And a lot of times they also offer like group, like live free sessions that you can join. And like they'll have somebody leading it.
There's an energy to it.
And there's an energy to it. You can feel it. And you can, and like, if you're in it and you're thinking, like, and you're like feeling it, you can feel the energy of the group. So I like that as well. And it's funny. So the other thing, like, I think back about before we started reading about the moon, and just like how I mentioned before, like chasing the moon and going with my daughter. And I can remember even with bringing my baby to look at the full moon. And I think even then I was maybe making wishes on the full moon, which I still think is okay. Do you know what I'm saying? I feel like whatever you're called to. And so thinking back to some of the things, following intuition. So whatever you feel called to do on the full moon or the new moon, like go for it, but just know that the energy is there to manifest, the energy is there to let go on that full moon. And I think being aware of it is cool. You know, I like it. I like having that knowledge of that. It helps lead the direction of my month.
I like that. And then to create a layer that goes a little bit deeper, there's more than just that. This might blow your minds. Either you guys are like so far advanced, you're like, yeah, duh, girl, I already know this. Or you're like, mine's going to be blown. We had no idea. Did you know that you have more than your horoscope, your main sign that we know as your sun or your star sign? So that is the date you were born, right? So Chris and I are both Scorpios, but we now have learned we have more signs. We're more, as people, more layered than that. This will really aid people who don't associate fully with their sign, and they might find out what their other two signs are and see why it supports why they have the one that they're under. So we started to look into this, and what I want you to do, if you don't already know it, is to go ahead and pause if you want, but at minimum after this, look it up. So there's a moon sign, and there's a rising sign, also called an ascendant, and look up rising sign calculator and moon calculator. You're going to need to know where you were born.
Mm-hmm. The location,
the location, the date, and the exact time you were born to find these things out. And what these do is they give you additional information about yourself. So you're going to look it up, and most likely these other two signs are going to be different. and or one of them might overlap. So you have something really curious to look into. Now I see your phone out. Do you have something to define these for me right now? Because I don't remember.
Yeah, no, so just to help. So, and the sun sign is like what we all know. That's the one that like you ask your horoscope. We all know like, oh, we're both Scorpios.
That's like
the
mostly are, the core of you.
Well, and they say the sun determines your ego, identity, and role in life. And so I feel like we all really relate to our sign, you know, and if you ask them in their horoscope, that's their sun sign. Most people do. The next thing is the next sign is the moon sign. And the moon is, again, where your moon was on the time you were born, like what sign the moon was in. And the moon rules your emotions, moods, and feelings. This is likely the sign you most think of yourself as, since it reflects your personality when you're alone or deeply comfortable. Mm-hmm. So like, what's your personality? So that's interesting. And then the ascendant is when you were born, what sign was in the sky. Okay. So whether it was Scorpio or Taurus or whatever was in the sign, when you were like at the exact time you were born in the exact place. So your ascendant is the mask you present to people. It can be seen in your personal style and how you come off to people when you first meet. So that sun, moon, and ascendant, and I think they also call the ascendant rising, is like another kind of way to identify. And I just think that, again, we're talking about moons. That moon sign is really interesting to me because, again, we talk so much about the sun, but the sun and the moon are so connected. Right. Like, why wouldn't the moon sign have an impact on your personality, especially when the moon does rule emotion? Right. So yeah, so look it up, look at the birth chart. I feel like that's another really cool way. We'll share the book that we have because it gets so much deeper. It gets deeper. So for the purpose of our moon convo, we won't dive into this at the moment, although I'd like to, because I'd like to learn more about it. Yeah. Again, this is like a brand new topic to us, but it does relate to your moon and the manifesting. Yes. So within this book, this is where we found this layer. Not only are you to manifest, you could do the generic, here's my new wishes, and then here's my releases. Right. But if you wanted to really tune in, apparently the moon really has your back if you look up where your rising sign is at that exact month. And again, there's calculators for it. So without getting crazy detailed, for every sign of the horoscope, we actually have different houses that we're in. So right now, I looked up this morning, my new moon, Scorpio rising, is in my 4th house. So when I look that up, it has a category for me to focus on, and it'll supercharge my wish if I focus on the house that I'm in, based on my rising sign. So I looked it up this morning, and my house is in ironically, it's called houses, but my house is in the one of house, family, and friends. Okay. I'm supposed to focus on all things domestic, possibly renovating a home, new home, things relating to home, and things relating to family. So if you have this information, now based on this and on the book we're reading, it's saying instead of just any new moon wish, now, if I focus on my home, which really works for me and what I'm working on this year, that it'll be supercharged with the backing of the moon. So like I said, we're not experts on these houses, and anytime we're interested in it, we just look it up. We look it up. We need our rising sign, and then we look it up in our book Moonology. She has it listed out. You look up what is your rising sign in that moon, and we find out what house you're in. So houses. They each have a different flavor, and that's the word she uses. Your house flavors your month. So it's saying it's supercharging that department of your life if you focus when you started telling us about finding things this morning, they could be mini manifestations. So tell us about the houses and what the flavors of our month could be. Okay. Right. So again, if you want to lean into these houses. So the first house is your appearance and image, self-identity, how you come across to others. Okay. Second house, cash, property, and possessions, value, including how you value yourself. Third house, communication, siblings, neighbors, quick trips, early education. Fourth house, home and family, all things domestic, where you belong in your past. Is that where you are this month? Fourth, yes. Okay, fourth. All right. Home and family, that's a big one. The fifth house is romance, creativity, kids, your own or someone else's, pursuit of pleasure, and love affairs. The sixth house, which is what I looked up for this new moon, is where I'm sitting, is daily routines, including at work, your health, and duty. So just a side note, when I read that, what I'm going to do is kind of lean in to manifesting getting back into an exercise routine on top of all my bigger manifestations, but have that as something that's like an underlying current, which I've been wanting to do anyway. And hopefully that'll help me feel motivated. The 7th house is your lovers, your spouse, and your ex, open enemies, any sort of partner, including business partners, cooperation, and competition. Seems like the 8th house, joint finances, credit cards, debt, sex, anything you consider taboo, inheritance, and transformation. The 9th house is study, travel, the great cosmic quest, the internet, higher learning, religion, and big dreams. 10th house, your career and ambitions, how you make your mark on the world, what you're known for, and your reputation. The 11th house is friends, networks, social circles, what you're wishing for. And the last house, the 12th house, is the deepest, darkest, most sensitive part of your chart. Your fears, your spirituality, self-undoing, withdrawal, and dreams. So one of the things that she mentions here is that she says she gets a question a lot from when they read this is, should I make my wishes depending on which part of my chart is being activated? And the answer is yes, if you want to. But otherwise, just make wishes like you always do. So if you want to get that step deeper or that step further and have that as kind of part of what you're doing, like what we're doing, go for it. And you can easily go to her website and find out exactly what house your sign is in to help elevate.
Right. So as we said, I think when you're new to this, you don't want to overcomplicate because it feels overwhelming. And then as a layer resonates, you can kind of go to the next level. Yeah. And that was what we do. But one thing I think is really interesting on the intuition and what just it comes really naturally, I noticed. So before we learned about houses, or about the time I did, before I'd look up my house, I'd write my new moon wish in a certain category, not even knowing what they were. And I did this for a few months and I tested myself. I wouldn't look up what house it was until after I did this. And every time I was already in line with what the focus should be. And this happened to me this month again, because last night, knowing it was a new moon, I wrote in my journal that I was focusing very massively homeward, like on multiple things in relationship to my home, getting my rental house for my renovation. My other wish was that my renovation plans continued to go smooth and that abundance would find me for my renovation. And then my big one I've always been working on is, I don't know how I'm going to get it, but my Paris house. Yeah. So, and then I looked it up and houses was the thing. And this has happened to me so many times where I'll randomly write. So you even said it before Krista looked it up. You had said you wanted to focus on a new routine and getting back into your household being together and your fitness routine. And then you looked it up and it was exactly that. So I guess my next kind of weird layer of it is like, I actually feel we're already in tune with it without knowing it. Yeah. You might already be wishing for something and it's exactly what you were. And it gives more power to it for me that this has happened so many times. I honestly really feel into this.
I love that. I love that.
So I could go on and on. Again, this is a subject where newbies at, but have lots of feelings and gut reactions to. Yep. So hopefully this is super fun for you. And if you don't know about it, you can look into it. We're leaving you to finding out your sun, moon, and rising sign as well, which is so fun to look into. We are going, like we mentioned at some point, that we're going to a ceremony tonight. It's a new moon ceremony, and we do not know what's going to go down. Right. If we never talk to you again about it, it was quite basic, and it was what you would imagine it could be, or we'll circle back if it's cool or we want something to share.
Yeah, any key takeaways we'll share with you.
We'll share with you. But that's our first approach at Moon with you guys. There's many more to discuss, and
we can't wait to hear your new moon manifestations and your full moon let goes.
Yes, so we actually want to hear from you. But happy new moon!
Happy new moon! All
right,
thanks. Thank you for listening. We've loved being your spiritual travel guides and hope this made you feel more connected. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast player. Your reviews help us create the guide that you are looking for. We'd also love to hear your stories.
You can follow and share your experiences with us on Instagram at So Guided Podcast. Your story might just be our next weekly woo-woo. Join us again next week as we continue to dig deeper into the universe. And remember, stay curious, ask the questions. You are so guided.